for calling out my roommate for keeping me awake all night with her overnight guest. AITHA for calling out my roommate for keeping me up with an overnight guest. Hi Reddit, this situation happened on Tuesday night. Background: we've known each other for years, and prior to agreeing to be roommates we talked about a few ground rules. She said that she did not plan on bringing guys over because she's not that type of person. This great because we share a traditional dorm room. For those who don't know, a traditional dorm means you share a room with one other person. There's probably about 3 feet between the beds. She knows I have a very early class, which is essential to my major. On Tuesday afternoon we discussed rules about bringing gentlemen callers, if you know what I mean. I said I had no problem with her having guys over as long as she let me know beforehand so I wasn't there. On Tuesday night she woke me up at 1 a.m., bringing a guy in. I sleep without pants and she knows this, so imagine my surprise when I'm woken up by a guy just standing at the foot of my bed. They left back out and came in again around 2:30, and this time he stayed. He kept me up for the whole night laughing and talking. I would have told him to leave, however he was much bigger and stronger than I am. He's a football player, and I'm short, chubby, and not very athletic by any means. He didn't leave out until after 4 in the morning. I was pissed, needless to say. I then talked to my roommate about it again and she apologized because he was loud, not because she invited him without even informing me. Our housing policy states that overnight guests have to be agreed on by all roommates, and the other people are supposed to be given at least 24 hours notice in advance. Not to say that I needed that much notice, it would have just been to know beforehand. On Thursday, she woke me up again before my class, coming in from partying, being very loud. This has really started to already affect my energy levels going into my day, and makes paying attention in class difficult because I'm tired. On my way back to campus Sunday she said she's bringing someone else over. I tell her we need to talk about our guest policy. When I'm back in the dorm, a large group of us were in the common area, and someone brings up whether or not a person should leave in the event of their roommate brings an overnight guest. I say that their roommate shouldn't have to leave the bed they paid for, and they keep grilling me about why I'm so against it. I then tell them about what happened Tuesday night and everyone loses their mind. They say I'm an awful person for airing out my roommate, however, I didn't go into detail about what I saw, similar to how I'm writing the story here out of respect for her. My roommate then blows up on me saying that she's going to continue to have guys over the whole night, and that I'm not being a real one, and that she would do the same for me. To clarify, I'm not a prude, I just had issues with the lack of communication and how abruptly everything happened, on top of feeling uncomfortable in my own room. I am not comfortable sleeping in the same room as some random man, who she had only met that night. I reiterated all of this to everyone who was bombarding me with questions. After a while more people came in, and similar to the game telephone, the story became more and more convoluted. I clarified any misgivings anyone had about the situation, and told everyone calling her names to knock it off. After everything was said and done, I went back to my room. My room is very close to the common area, so I could hear everything they were saying. My roommate started to speak poorly of me as soon as I left, saying I had no friends and no one liked me. The group then started to make fun of me because I'm a virgin. Note to anyone in the comments: I've been in a long-term relationship for the past 2 years, so far we think we're going to wait until marriage. This rhetoric has been going on for days. It makes it extremely difficult to leave my room to even go get food because they're always in the common area talking about me. I think my roommate may have shared some of my very personal information because now they laugh when I walk by. I have some people on my side of the argument, but not as many people as are against me. So Reddit AIW for calling out my roommate for keeping me up with her overnight guest. ETA, I talked to my roommate about the situation on Wednesday at the gym after my class. It seemed like we were on the same page then, but clearly not given the conversation we had on Sunday. Before anyone says I'm telling her business, it's well known she has guys over. She brags about it all the time. Update: AIW for calling out my roommate for keeping me awake all night with her overnight guest. First off, thank you so much for comments of support and affirming that I'm not insane. I had a meeting with our program director and explained the situation, and she said that she understands why I want to move. However, moving at this time may not be happening because there's still accounting spaces actually taken, versus those still left available. I also emailed the professor in the discussion-based course everyone, and I explained that I don't feel comfortable joining into a lot of the discussions because of the things people are still saying. As far as things between my roommate and I are going, I wouldn't say things are going well. We only talk when she's in the room, if that. She said she was upset I told her business. However, now that everything is said and done, people who were actually there that night are acknowledging that her retelling of the story blows the situation way out of proportion and makes it seem like I told everything that happened with her overnight guest. I also tried to tell her to see things from my perspective and reiterated that we discussed the subject several times, and she went back on our agreement. She left after that and went back to shit-talking. I met with my RA and the things she can do are very limited due to updates in the housing policy. She said that she understood exactly how I felt but that she didn't want me to have to leave. She said that when the floor meeting happens, many issues she's been having with our group as a whole will be addressed. My floor and wing are currently under fire with the housing department due to how late and loud their get-togethers are, on top of the smoking and drinking that happens at them. She suggested a mediated meeting between my roommate and I to sign a housing contract. However, I'm not sure if bringing this up is the right move, because I feel like she'd be mad that I even talked to our RA about the issues we're having. At this point, I'm just gonna have to buy a sleep mask and couch surf on the nights she wants to have guys over. Our friendship is basically non-existent, and it feels like she envies my relationship with my boyfriend based on what she said in class today. She's always looking down on people and picking on their insecurities, making fun of their bodies, faces, skin tones, and various other things. She complained about how she's pretty enough to be messed with, but not pretty enough to be someone's girlfriend. Which is ironic because she dumped her boyfriend before coming to college because she didn't want to be tied down. I think she is just very insecure, and I honestly don't know how to approach making the best out of our living situation or my time outside the dorm within our community. Some advice I saw in the comments was to just go out there, but every time I leave my room they start whispering or stop talking altogether. I might have another meeting with our program director to discuss what next steps are to navigate this situation. But so far these are all the updates that come to mind. Again, thank you all so much for everything. Update 2, AIW for calling out my roommate for keeping me up all night with her overnight guest. So some more things have happened since the last update. I thought she was done with her shit-talking. I started wearing headphones almost full-time in the dorm so I wouldn't have to listen to everything happening in the common area. Our friendship seemed to improve because we started talking again when we're both in our room. She also since has not had any overnight guests over since. As it turns out, she has been turning on music and retelling the story anytime she gets a chance from her point of view, which people who actually know us know is over-dramatized. I know all of this because one of my friends is over at our dorm a lot, and they talk shit in front of her, because they don't know about our connection. However, yesterday was where I draw the line. I told her I was okay with her having guys over as long as she kept everything to her side of the room and let me know in advance. I go home every weekend to avoid having to deal with the guys she wants over and just so I can enjoy my space. It also gives me a chance to stay close with my family. While I was packing up to go home yesterday, she came in and asked when I was leaving. I told her I was packing and that I had a class. I then asked her why. She said she wanted to have a guy over, didn't consult or anything to see if I needed our dorm space to study, or if I was even okay with it. I left for my lab after I packed up, and when I got back, she put her cum-stained comforter on the bathroom floor, and had left what I thought was a used condom on my side of the room with the wrapper just on the floor. I value cleanliness, and I feel that if anything, items such as those need to be disposed of properly. I was disgusted, and waited till she got back, and told her to come pick it up and clean up after herself. She claimed it wasn't used, however she's been known to lie about things to save face, so I took that with a grain of salt. Many comments suggested that I get my parents involved. I have kept them in the loop about everything. Aside from the bullying, I feel embarrassed about it considering the fact that I am technically an adult. My parents are concerned about my safety and health, but until housing does things on their part, there isn't much they can do without contacting the school. They wanted to get more involved. However, I said that might not be best due to the backlash I was already facing. They don't know about the isolation and would blow up the situation even more if they did. While I'm not judging her lifestyle choices, I feel things have become an issue because they're starting to impact my safety and health as well. My roommate has started coughing excessively and now has stomach issues. I don't know if this is related to her frequent sexual activity, but since we are in such close quarters, I don't want to also be affected by whatever she's picked up. I'm also worried that my space is being used in my absence. Because of the mess that was left, The situation itself feels very difficult to navigate, and I'm debating meeting with our RA again to see how to handle the issue of cleanliness and health concerns. Hopefully, AIW for calling out my roommate for keeping me up all night with her overnight guest. A lot has happened within the past week. Sorry for taking so long to update. Moving has been hectic. Last Tuesday, my roommate asked me if she could have a guy over many hours in advance. She said that he would be at our dorm by 9, and that he would be gone by 10 or 10:30 at the latest. I agreed because it was within a reasonable time frame, and she'd asked very early. This guy was driving in from our hometown about an hour from our university. It's close to 9 by this point, and the guy still hasn't shown up. I decide to make small talk about him. I asked who the guy was that kept coming to see her. She responded by correcting me and saying guys, plural. I was shocked but let her continue explaining. Turns out it's been a different guy that's come to see her every time. While I'm not judging her lifestyle, I find it odd that she's so comfortable bringing these guys she barely knows to our living space. 10 rolls around, and this guy still hasn't shown up. By 10:30 she came in saying, "Final update, hopefully, AIW for calling out my roommate for keeping me up all night with her overnight guest. A lot has happened within the past week. Sorry for taking so long to update. Moving has been hectic. Last Tuesday, my roommate asked me if she could have a guy over many hours in advance. She said that he would be at our dorm by 9, and that he would be gone by 10 or 10:30 at the latest. I agreed because it was within a reasonable time frame, and she'd asked very early. This guy was driving in from our hometown about an hour from our university. It's close to 9 by this point, and the guy still hasn't shown up. I decide to make small talk about him. I asked who the guy was that kept coming to see her. She responded by correcting me and saying guys, plural. I was shocked but let her continue explaining. Turns out it's been a different guy that's come to see her every time. While I'm not judging her lifestyle, I find it odd that she's so comfortable bringing these guys she barely knows to our living space. 10 rolls around, and this guy still hasn't shown up. By 10:30 she came in saying that he was playing basketball but still was coming. 11 rolled around and this guy still hadn't shown up. At this point, I assumed that he stood her up and I started getting ready for bed. At around 11:20, I'm putting on my bonnet to go to bed, and she says that the guy is here and that she's bringing him up. I tell her that it's late, but before we can continue our conversation, she rushes out of the room and says I'm much appreciated. I go to wait out in the common area. Close to midnight, our guy Raw sees me and asks what I'm still doing outside. He asked if I had class the next morning. I said I did, but that I couldn't go back to my room. He asked why, and I said that my roommate had a guest over. He said it was my room too. He told me to let him know if the issue continued so we could have a meeting, and then he went to bed. When 12 hit, I asked my roommate via text if the guy was leaving soon. She said to give them a minute. That minute turned into half an hour. When 12:30 came around, I told her the guy needed to leave. I didn't end up getting back in my room till around 12:45. My boyfriend was on the phone with me through everything because he felt uncomfortable with me having to be outside that late. He stayed up that night and said I didn't fall asleep to nearly 2 hour long distance. I had an 8 a.m. the following day, which I slept through because I was so exhausted. I told my parents about the situation before I left for class. My dad ended up calling the school and talking to someone from housing. He said originally, they were reluctant to even look into the issue. Housing said that they didn't know about what the RAs had done to fix the issue, so it was out of their control. My dad then asked how an issue of my safety was out of their control, since the first incident happened without my consent or acknowledgement. After that, Housing contacted me to ask for details, which I gave them. They said they'd have the RAs talk to my roommate while they finished checking for vacancies. On Thursday, I tried to give my roommate a heads up about the fact that Housing might come to talk to her. Turns out they already had, and she was upset. I understand her frustration. However, I did try to talk to her about the issue several times, and at that point felt like my time was being disrespected. I'm an honors student and engineering major. She wants to be a sorority girl and is a sports management major. I'm not shaming her career path choice. I'm simply stating this to show the difference in caliber regarding our course level difficulty. She started to go off on me about how I don't like the way she lives. I told her that it wasn't even that, our schedules just don't align, and it's starting to affect my sleep schedule. For me, sleeping isn't just important for school but also important for my health. I'm slightly pre-diabetic as a result of how I had copious amounts of sugar during high school to substitute for sleep. I've been working hard to change my habits with eating, sleeping, and incorporating exercise back into my routine to stop things from progressing to type 2 diabetes. I told her all this when I first got diagnosed, so she knows all this, which is what has made the situation all the more frustrating to me. Housing reached out to me that afternoon about an opening in a suite-style dorm. I accepted their offer as soon as I got it. My girl Ra reached out and said my roommate was willing to mediate the issue after she found out about the news. It felt like too little too late, so I politely declined, and said that even with mediation the issue may persist and start to affect me on more important days, such as nights before exams, big projects. My RA told me she understood and apologized for not being able to do more to fix the issue. I packed to move out on Friday and left to go home for the weekend. She wasted no time removing me from the group chat we had for the women in our community. We haven't talked since Friday, and with the way things are looking, we probably won't. She's a completely different person than who I graduated high school with. She's also made it to where I have pretty much no community within our program, so as a result of that, I haven't had anyone to talk to, or been able to participate in a lot of events. I moved in on Sunday. My new roommates have been great. We all live pretty separate lives, so there's not really any interference. I don't know if I handled the situation correctly. If more could have been done on my end, let me know in the comments. That's all that comes to mind for now.